Last episode in the Stormcast painting tutorial series. Episode 4, here we go. Let's do the bases. Figure out what we did, and more importantly, why we did it. Intro. Hello, I'm Wayne. Thanks for coming back. If you're new here, hello, how are you doing? If you are back for the rest of the series, I hope you're enjoying it so far. And yeah, I'm going to say it. I know, all the people on YouTube do it. If you're enjoying it, leave me a thumbs up. Leave a comment down below. Much appreciated. Subscribe if you're not. Ring that bell. All of that YouTubey stuff. You know the drill. It does help the channel grow. And that's what I want, to be honest. I'm not going to lie. I quite enjoy doing the videos. I'm not looking for what else out of it. So yeah, that's out of the way. Let's talk about basing. We've done the armor. We've done the materials. We've done the glowing effect. And it looks pretty cool already. You could base it however you want, walk away from this, and you're done. Hopefully you've got some techniques and theory understanding from these first 3 videos. Up here, playlist to the previous videos, go and do those first, and then come back and finish this. Linked down below as well in the description. Why is the basing important then? Well, in this respect, what we've learned and what we're going to do is the base helps draw the viewer's eye around the model, and what we want to do here is really emphasize parts of the model that we want to stand out. In effect, we want the head to stand out and we want the weapons to stand out. Now, from video 3, we saw how to create that lightning effect on the weapons and in the eyes. That gives us a visual coherency throughout our entire army. Now, what we can do is we can create a very simple basing theme that is nice and simple, but we can also use that to bring down the values of all of the other colors. And by doing that, we make effectively the brights brighter and the darks darker. This is where the OSL really comes into its own. The point in the OSL is you have the very high highlights, the whites, but you can't go anywhere from white. And white contrasts very well with black, as we've already established. Now, having a base with a vignette around it helps center the model in the base, but also it brings the value of the lower half of the model down. So where we've got the OSL up at the top, unless we've got some reflections on the base, some of them might do if you've got the lightning striking down or a squat pose, then that really helps darken the model down without taking too much of the saturation away from the model, because you know it's a trick of the eye. So when you look around it, you've still got everything that you already previously had. However, it looks much brighter on the higher points. That's the key to this technique. Okay, let's jump in, have a look, and see what we can do. Okay, Stevie, if you'd be so kind as to help us look at what we've already achieved. So we've done as armor, we've done as fabrics, and in our last episode, we got the glow on the eyes and the weapons completely dialed in. So we're at the finishing touches now, and we're going to work on the base. Basing isn't my favorite thing to do when I'm building an army. However, it's really important, and it's a really easy way to sell a consistent coherency throughout your army, and you can use it as well to push that contrast further. As we've been talking about, contrast is really the selling point of this entire thing. Going from the brightest bright to the darkest dark, that's going to give us that real standout glow of the weapons of the eyes, and the thing that really gives it the visual punch that we're trying to achieve. Now, as we've said, it's that darkness, isn't it? That dark point which makes the brights brighter. So what we're going to do in this is we're going to find a complementing color scheme for his bases, get them done as fast as possible, because we don't want to spend too much time in it, have a nice contrasting element on each of the bases to tie it to the actual model. And then we're going to use a very simple technique to make the base somewhat a frame for the model and draw the eye up by darkening the edge of it. It's called vignetting. You'll see it on photographs often. There'll be a darker halo, or sometimes a lighter halo. You can use the inverse of it around the outside, and that forces your eye into the center. But you can also use it to increase the color values of something towards brighter or darker. So we're going to do that. It's a very simple basing scheme. So all we're going to do is we're going to put some sand on the base. As you'll see here, all I'm doing is some thinned down PVA. That's giving me a good base to work from. I'll let that dry a little bit. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to put my basing mix on the base itself. Now, I've not got anything special for this. I've not bought a product. All this is a couple of different grains of sand and some rock salt I've mixed together, dried it out thoroughly in the oven. It gives me a nice various mix of sizes, textures and shapes. Once that's on there, I let it dry for 24 hours. Then, as you can see, I'm going to come back in. I'm going to get some even more thinned down PVA. So it's something like a 3:1, 3 parts water, 1 part PVA ratio. And I'm going to just soak the entire thing again. Now what this does is it'll fix all of those particles in place. So we need to paint it. In this instance, what we're going to do is look at something that will complement the colour of the armour. So I'm going to use a earthy brown tone. Now we've got that done, let's come in with a wash. I'm using a mix of Agrax Earthshade and a sepia wash here. Doesn't matter what brands you use really, but what this is going to do is just give us some variation in the base colour, rather than just having that one brown. Just really being haphazard about how I'm applying it on here. So some areas will have a thick coat, some areas will have a thin coat. It's giving us just some visual interest. Once we've done that, we're pretty much there with the base colour, to be honest. That's all we need to do. I'm not going to dry brush it or highlight it. What we don't want to do is draw too much attention to the base. The purely optional step here is that I'm using some purple foliage, these flowers, just to tie it back to the actual model itself. So using purple so it ties in the materials and that highlight colour that we've got on his main figure. Now you don't have to do this, but it does give you some referential integrity between the base and the model itself. At this point, I would strongly recommend that you rim your base. Now, I'm going to be using black because, again, it's the contrast, but you can use whatever colour you want to fit in with the rest of your army. I prefer black personally, and again, it's a down to personal preference, but the vignetting will look better later. If you're not going to use black, then come back later and put your base rim colour on after we've done the vignetting. I use pretty much any black paint for rimming my base. I prefer the Vallejo black because it's nice and flat. Onto the vignetting then. I'm going to use Molotow black here, and all I'm going to do is put a little bit into the airbrush and you'll see me working around the outer edge of the base. Now I'm not going to mask anything off or anything like that. Just be very careful of what you're going to do. You don't want the black to encroach too much onto the base, and I'm getting a little bit on the underside of the foliage as well because I want to darken down that quite vibrant green that doesn't fit in. So we're just working those tones together, perhaps about 1/5 of the edge of the rim. Now you don't want to go too dark on it, obviously, so you do want to be utilising the airbrush here to give you that feathered look. Just think about how the gradient from the darker on the outside to the lighter on the inside is going to work, and that's what we're trying to achieve. So the base should be brighter in the middle, just directly underneath the figure, and that's going to draw the eye upwards to where we want the viewer to be looking. We're almost there now, guys. This is the final step, and again, it's purely optional, but this is the one that's really going to give you the punch. I varnish my miniatures. Now what that does is it increases the saturation of the colours. It doesn't matter what varnish you're going to use, but it needs to be either satin or gloss. If you matte on it, it won't have the same effect. I prefer satin varnish. I really like the effect it gives, and also it protects them for gaming because these are gaming miniatures. This was just a really fast method of getting them to tabletop while looking, I think, quite well. So all we're going to do is, again, I'm using airbrush, but you can brush this on if you prefer. I'm using Vallejo satin varnish, and I'm just going to coat the entire model. This will really bring that luster back to the golds. The metallics will look a little bit more metallic as they were, but what's really going to be impacted by this is that glow. Having the varnish, it increases the saturation. It just makes everything so much more vibrant, and it's what really, really sells this. That's it. Let's take a look at the final miniatures. And as you can see, they look pretty good for the amount of effort we've put into them. You can get them to the tabletop fast, and hopefully you'll be enjoying AOS 4th edition with some shiny Stormcast. And that's it. We're done. Now, you should be able to replicate this if you want to do it 1-to-1. All of the colours have been there all along, but I would strongly recommend you come up with your own theme unless you particularly really like that one, and utilise the techniques that you've learned over the past 4 videos to really help you put together an efficient, fast, fun paint scheme that you as an individual really like and are really proud of. Hopefully, this will transition between different paint projects for you, and you'll be in a much better place to enjoy the painting side of the hobby a little bit more than you did previously. And hopefully, you'll be able to get your army on the tabletop considerably faster than you would have done before, with way less intimidation. We've not really used any tools that you shouldn't have in your arsenal already. Everything that's been in here you can do with a brush if you want to spend a little bit more time doing it that way. Utilising rattle cans and an airbrush really gets the efficiency going. Realistically, I've done, I think it was 2,500 points are in my lists now, and I smashed that entire army out in just under a week. And that was over a course of multiple sessions and recording this video as well. Using these techniques is super simple. 90% of the entire process was done in the first video, using those rattle cans and then really making use of enamels and being able to take but then add back if you go a little bit too far just makes things so simple. Anybody can do it. And with that, we're done. So if you've enjoyed this series, let me know down in the comments. Do tell me if you would like to see me do some other series like this. If you didn't like it, equally let me know as well. That'd be really useful feedback. I'm not saying I'm not going to do them again, because I quite enjoyed putting this together, so we'll see about that. But it would be really good to hear if you've enjoyed it, and I would love to see some of the projects. Perhaps you've been inspired by these videos, or some of the techniques that hopefully you've learned as a takeaway. I'm going to leave it there for now, and I will see you next week when, well, I don't know what we're going to talk about yet, but we'll see. Have a good one. See ya.